Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Brothers and sisters, welcome to video number 8, Migration 313. I'm Abu Hadi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. These are the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Shams. Okay? And this is in the latter part of the Quran, one of the surahs. And this is a very important surah. I'm going to go over the translation a little bit for you. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, by the sun and by its heat. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, and by the moon when she follows the sun. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the day when it shines forth. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and by the night when it covers the day. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا, and by the heavens and the one who made it. وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, and by the earth and the one who expanded it. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, and by the soul and him who made it perfect. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, then he inspired the soul about what is right and what is wrong. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, surely, truly, the one who purifies the soul is successful. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and the one who corrupts the soul has failed. So, this video is talking about purification of the soul. And this surah is very important. It's basically, if I can summarize the first 10 verses for you of Surah Al-Shams. It says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by many of the great signs of His creation, by the sun and by the heat of the sun. You know how much heat the sun generates. And by the night when it covers the day, and all of the spectacular things, and by the heavens, the huge, the universe, which we don't even know what the limits of it are. He's taking all these things in His creation. He's swearing by all these things. I swear by this, and by this, and by this, and by this, and by this. That whoever purifies his soul is successful. And whoever fails to purify his soul, or corrupts his soul, has not succeeded, has failed, basically. And this surah in the Quran is one of the main surahs that talks about, or that leads us to self-purification, purification of the soul, of the self. And this surah is showing you how extremely important this is, the purification of the soul. In fact, some people say this is the whole point of Islam itself, is to get the people to purify their soul. Now, we talked about it in the last video. We said because the soul isn't something you can see or something you can taste or touch or feel, a lot of people deny that you have a soul. They think you just have a body and that, you know, when you die, the body turns to dust and that's it. But all of the major religions of the world, including the religion of Islam, teach that you have a soul, you have an immaterial part. And Islam goes even deeper and it gives you a very practical approach for purifying the soul. And because this is this is the holy month of Ramadan, one of the main things, or the greatest things that we have to purify the soul, is fasting. Is going without food for so many hours a day, and you think, well, big deal, I do that all the time, I don't eat. No, but what it was saying is we go without eating from a certain time to a certain time, not just eating, but it's not just eating. But fasting is a comprehensive exercise to purify the soul. We go without eating, we go without drinking, we go without sexual intercourse, we go without looking at forbidden things that we're not supposed to look at. We go without gossiping, without talking bad about other people. That's also part of it. Okay, so there's many aspects to that. And what does that do? It teaches you to have discipline, to discipline your soul. So the surah is saying, the one who purifies the soul is successful. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. That's an unconditional statement. Surely the one who purifies the soul has succeeded. No conditions. In other words, if somebody who even you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, if you go out and you say, I want to purify my soul, and you end up purifying your soul, you've succeeded. By the measure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the measure of God, who is the ultimate judge of everything, you have succeeded, even if you don't have any outward signs of that success. Even if you never make $1 million, even if you never get into the career that you wanted to get into, even if you never get to go out with that girl that you've been wanting to go out with, even if you never come up with a new scientific theory or invent a new technology, or if you don't do any of those things, but you purify your soul, then you've succeeded. And it says, even if you do all of those things, you have a good career, money, women, you invent new things, maybe you win the world, you help your team win the World Cup, or you become first place in the Olympics, or you're most valuable player, or whatever, and you have money and everything, but you don't purify your soul, you failed. You failed. Ultimately, you failed. And this is what this surah is saying. And we do not do these actions, fasting, praying, all these things is supposed to get you to purify your soul. The first step to purifying your soul is to discipline your soul. And we don't do these actions to help God, because God is independent. He's the sovereign. Okay? Sovereign meaning he doesn't need anybody else. He makes the decisions, and there's nobody above him to tell him anything. Okay? We do this for ourselves, to purify ourselves, to purify our soul. And we purify our soul so that we can journey. This is where the migration comes in. We purify our soul so we can journey towards our ultimate destination, which is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, closer to the proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not in physical proximity, we talked about that before, not in physical proximity, but in the ultimate measure of proximity. We cannot approach our Creator in a filthy state with a filthy soul. It just doesn't work that way. Unless you purify your soul, unless you get rid of these dirty things that are inside your soul, you'll never be able to make progress. You'll never be able to make real progress, spiritual progress, where your heart and your mind are satisfied, where your body can truly be at rest. You're never going to be able to do that unless you undertake the process of getting rid of all these filthy things that are inside the soul of everybody. Everybody has these things. So for people who are new to Islam, they might wonder, they become Muslim and they say their Shahada, and they start praying and they start fasting. Maybe they start fasting during Ramadan. But their life doesn't change much in the beginning. They still have the same challenges. Some of them, they still have the same bad habits that they had before they were Muslim. Maybe some of them, and I see this, a lot. Unfortunately, this is what happens. They do their Shahada, and then they still drink alcohol, or they still look at pornography, or they still have a gambling problem, or they still have a drug problem, or they still have anger issues. Those kind of things. Well, what you have to understand is the purification of the soul is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time, and the more deep-rooted these things are in your soul, the longer they're going to take to get rid of. But as long as you're committed to the process of purifying the soul, in other words, as long as you continue to pray, you continue to fast, you continue to, the number one thing is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you get over your problems. Always take your problems to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't try to approach other people to solve your problems before you take your problems to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to help you with the problem. And if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you to purify your soul, definitely He will always help you to do that. Because this is why you were created in the first place. Okay, to purify your soul. Okay? But at the same time, many people, they don't have patience for this. They see themselves, falling back into these previous habits and these previous ways that they were before, and they kind of lose hope. And this is the big problem, because you have to understand that everybody has these issues, and everybody at some point is going to lose hope and think, well, I'll never be able to purify my soul. This is just the way I am. And it's this kind of thinking that's your enemy. That line of thinking is your enemy, because as long as you're above ground and as long as you're still breathing, you always have the opportunity to purify your soul. And start out with the main things is praying, fasting. Like I said, being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, always thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for things. If something good happens to you, or something, anything you get, food, water, you have a nice conversation with somebody, you get your paycheck, all of these things, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you say, thank you God, thank you God, thank you God for these things. This is part of the purification of the soul. Because it's very interesting if you look in the Quran, when it says, when the Iblis or Satan is talking, he's telling the people in the Quran, he's telling God, because you've made me in this low state, this filthy state that I'm in as a result of his own actions. But he's blaming God for doing it, but it's actually the result of his own actions. But he's saying, because you did this to me, I will lie in wait for them on your straight path. He said, I will come to them from behind them and from below them, from above them, from their right side, from their left side, and surely you will find most of them ungrateful. So, and you have to look at this word, ungrateful, okay? Because you have to understand that that's the goal of your enemy, which is Satan, is to make you ungrateful. Because when you're ungrateful, then the purification process stops of the soul. It just stops right there. And then because the soul is always moving, Mullah Sadr and many other of the Islamic philosophers say the soul is always moving. But because the soul is moving, it's always moving. If it's not moving forward, then it's moving backwards. So all that Iblis has to do is just stop this purification, because he knows if that happens, your soul will move backwards and you'll start to become not more pure but less pure your soul. And it says, it says in the Quran that if you do that, then you've failed. Okay, so how do we keep moving forward? Okay, the only way to keep moving forward is to not become hopeless. And whenever you make a mistake, whenever you fall down, whenever you take that drink, or whenever you watch that thing that you're not supposed to watch, or whenever you do that, when you ask forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you say, I'm not going to do that anymore, and you move forward, and you thank Allah for what He's given you, and you pray and fast, and if you do this, you keep doing this, and you keep doing this, and you don't lose hope, eventually you will succeed. It says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Surely the one who purifies it, who constantly is doing this process of purification, it doesn't matter how far you get, but you've succeeded because of you trying to do this process. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you this, and surely the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. So what I wish for the community during this holy month of Shahr Ramadan is for all of us to keep striving. This is the month of striving, to keep undergoing this process, to purify your soul. So fasting is one of the ways. Fasting is one of the great ways to do it. Fasting, doing salat, being grateful. Number 3 is trying to understand the Holy Quran and trying to understand the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really using your mind to really go deep, try to go deep into these concepts. I mean, this video is one of the reasons why, it's if you consider what I'm saying in this video and you look into these concepts and you study them and you try to get a clear picture in your mind of what is قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, what is surely those who purified it have succeeded. If you really try to study that in itself is a process of self-purification. So we said fasting, praying, intellectual study, in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to understand the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being thankful, being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Helping other people who need help. So some people, I've known people, they become Muslim because they said, instead of being selfish and greedy and only thinking about myself all the time, I'm going to try to help somebody else. Volunteer in a project, go to a homeless shelter, go feed people who don't have food, go, if somebody owes you money and you know that they're having a hard time paying you back, just forgive that debt for them. Okay, those kind of things. Showing kindness to other people, that's another way of self-purification. So what we should do is we should spend this month and every month, but let this month, the month of Shahr Ramadan, this blessed month, be a kind of like a kickstart for us to do the process of self-purification. Inshallah, we'll all succeed. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل البيت الطيبين الطاهرين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.